Welcome to FYIVT, your inside source for news and in-depth analysis on what's really happening in Vermont. We want to start by saying thank you to all our listeners and supporters. Your continued encouragement fuels our mission to dig deeper and bring light to critical issues that shape our communities. We couldn't do this without you. Today, we're diving into our article titled, Vermont's Rising Cost of Living. Let's talk about Vermont. It's the land of maple syrup, rolling hills, and that New England charm so many of us love. But let's face it, living here is no longer as affordable or as free as it used to be. You've probably noticed it in your heating bills, at the gas pump, or even when looking for housing. The cost of living is climbing. And it's not just inflation. It's the direct result of government overreach and progressive policies that are squeezing everyday Vermonters. Now, Vermont has become a petri dish for big government experiments. Climate change initiatives, housing regulations, ever-increasing taxes, it's all part of an agenda that claims to make the state more sustainable and equitable. But here's the problem. These policies don't come free. They come at a steep cost, one that's being shouldered by you, your family, and your neighbors. Let's start with the so-called fight against climate change. Vermont's Global Warming Solutions Act sets ambitious goals for reducing emissions, but it does so by forcing top-down mandates on residents and businesses. Take the Affordable Heat Act. This law aims to phase out fossil fuels, but what it really does is punish homeowners and fuel providers. If you heat your home with oil or propane, you're already feeling the effects: higher costs and fewer options. And for what? Vermont's emissions are a drop in the global bucket. Are these sacrifices really solving a global problem, or are they just making life harder for working families? And then there's housing. Vermont's housing shortage is no secret. But what's the government's solution? More regulations. Act 250, a decades-old environmental law, makes it nearly impossible to build new homes without jumping through endless hoops. Developers are bogged down by bureaucracy, which drives up costs and slows progress. As a result, housing is scarce, rents are climbing, and young families are being driven out. Here's the kicker. Vermont claims to care about affordability, but how can anyone afford to live here when housing is this expensive? The same pattern plays out with taxes. Vermont's tax burden is one of the highest in the nation. Income taxes are through the roof. Property taxes climb year after year, largely due to bloated education spending. And let's not forget the hidden taxes on gas, heating fuel, and electricity. These taxes are framed as necessary for investments in the future, but in reality, they're just more money out of your pocket. Rural Vermonters in particular feel the squeeze when gas prices rise, and they have no choice but to drive long distances for work or groceries. It's a direct attack on the people who make this state function. Now let's take a step back and ask ourselves, is this what progress looks like? The government's heavy-handed approach might sound good in theory, but in practice, it's choking Vermonters with unnecessary costs. We're told these policies will save the planet or fix inequality, but at what cost? We're paying more for housing, more for energy, and more for basic necessities, all because the government thinks it knows best. And here's the thing, Vermont isn't an isolated case. What we're seeing here is part of a broader trend, a push for centralized control and globalist ideals. Top-down mandates, whether they're about climate change, housing, or taxes, erode our personal freedoms. They take decisions out of our hands and put them into the hands of bureaucrats who don't have to live with the consequences. But it doesn't have to be this way. Vermont can chart a different course. Imagine a state where freedom is prioritized over government control. A state where residents, not lawmakers, decide how best to heat their homes or build their communities. A state where local solutions replace one-size-fits-all mandates. The good news is, it's not too late. Vermonters can push back against overregulation and demand policies that respect individual freedom and fiscal responsibility. Let's start by holding lawmakers accountable. Question every tax, every mandate, every regulation. Does it serve you, or does it serve their agenda? So, what's the solution? It starts with shrinking government. Strip back the regulations that are driving up housing costs. Let markets, not mandates, guide energy choices. And above all, let Vermonters keep more of their hard-earned money. Because the best solutions don't come from the government. They come from individuals, families, and communities. Here's a final thought. Vermont's beauty isn't just in its landscapes, it's in its people, their independence, and their resilience. Let's fight to preserve that. Let's fight for a Vermont that works for everyone, not just the policymakers and bureaucrats in Montpelier. Freedom is the foundation of prosperity. Stay informed, stay vocal, and most importantly, stay free. Thank you for listening to this episode of FYIVT. To read the full article and explore more on what's happening in Vermont and how the state works, visit us at FYIVT.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to continuing to bring you important perspectives on Vermont's most pressing issues. Until next time.